Welcome everyone to the Schools Out podcast. I am one of your hosts, Mr. Philip Mott. You can just call me Philip in case we ever meet in person. And sitting next to me is Hamilton Carter. Introduce yourself, Hamilton.
Hey, I'm Hamilton Carter. I am an unschooling dad from San Francisco. Yeah. Should I just peel into what we're doing this week?
My
Um,
only review is that now that we're thinking about it, we watched Inside Out again for our family movie night,
oh,
and as a psychology kind of buff, I love it. I think they did a really good job. I think it's very hard to try to create a metaphor for how the brain and how the emotions work. And I think Disney Pixar just did a really good job. Like I think it uses some metaphors that are helpful, even though there's all kinds of ways that you could shoot holes in it and say, oh, that's not how it works. I don't think it works that way. But it's a powerful movie thinking about the ways that the different emotions in our body interact. So have you seen it?
I have. We really liked
Yeah.
it because it takes place in San Francisco. Yeah, no, we really enjoyed it, and we might. Yeah, Star Wars has been a big thing here this week. So
Okay.
so lots of
I
Star Wars
noticed
getting
that
watched.
parenting traits, admirable parenting traits.
Yeah, and so what I got is a list of maybe four, I think three separate sets of parents or parent,
Hmm.
and a group of parents that I emulated or still try to emulate, and so sorry, and I think what how did it's cute to me that you and I always we typically we have the same list of topics and we always come at them from totally different directions.
Oh yeah.
Um, so did you want to start with the trait or
Sure. Yeah, one of them that I think might surprise you a little bit is, and it even surprises me because I don't really care for the term stoicism. Um,
okay?
but I do generally like parents who appear to be stoic, and less stoic and more of what Janet Lansbury called unruffled. Like when things are sort of chaotic and kids are being loud and rambunctious and even a little bit rude or talking back a little bit, that they're just kind of unflappable by that. They're just they kind of take it all in, and maybe they say things like, I prefer that you don't call me that, or I prefer that you use a different tone. um, and not that they are just completely free of any sort of boundaries, or respect, but they just have, and there's like a level of confidence they have that, like, whatever's happening now is not going to matter, and then even 10 minutes from now, and so
Yeah.
I'm going to treat it like it's not going to matter 10 minutes from now. And that, when I compare that to the parents who carry an air of like crisis with them, where it's one of the most easy examples to come up with is like when I hear parents yelling at their kids for going up the slide at a playground.
Oh yeah.
And now I can understand a little bit if the playground is busy and there are kids waiting, and it's like when there's a kid, if one of my kids is going up the slide and there's people up at the top, I'll correct them and say, when people are waiting, I want you to go around and just go down.
Oh
But
yeah.
I've heard parents like yell at their kids and angrily yell when the kid is by themselves on the slide, going up the slide. And it
Huh.
just seems like one of the most absurd things to be upset about.
Like, is it supposed to be? I've seen tons of this too. Is it supposed to be dangerous to go up a? Well, I mean, I guess it. Yeah, if somebody's coming down, but Is it inherently dangerous to go up a slide? And I just don't understand.
I don't think so. I think it's
Okay.
all about the right way to use the slide. And so parents believe that if I don't make them always go down, then they'll never recognize that other people may want to use it.
All
Like
right.
kids won't be able to make that call. Um, the kids aren't smart enough to know that when I'm by myself, I can go up and down as I please. But when
Yeah.
other people are there, then I need to use it in a way that's respectful of the way they want to use it. Um, Now, of course, you could add to
Cool.
that the fact that if everyone is in agreement that we're sort of using the slide as a separate as a playground where we're
Yeah.
all going up and down, then
See, that's mostly what I see. Yeah.
that introduces another dynamic. But if you make your kids go down all the time, then you're kind of robbing them of that opportunity to explore what their body can do, which is
Totally.
unfortunate to me.
It is. It is. For me, the parents that are don't do this, don't do that. I'm with you. Yeah, definitely more with the unflappable parents are a nice thing. But I've found a use for the parents that holler at kids at playgrounds, because the kids here get used to, because I just let them handle it. I mean, like, I don't think it ever has gotten out of hand. They've gotten very used to, oh, an adult's talking to me. Okay, they're expressing their opinion. Uh huh. Uh huh. Uh huh.
Hmm.
Is this something I actually have to deal with or not? And then they just keep on doing their own thing. And so yeah, I guess I've taken a pragmatic look at it. I wish people didn't, but at the same time, wow, what great practice for being out in the world later. Yeah, people are going to tell you what they
Yeah.
think, and you can ignore them or not, and off you go. Um,
Yeah, when our kids experience parents like shouting at their kids, they kind of stop and look at it and they're like, what's going on here? The look on their face is just like, okay, okay.
oh God. Um,
Um, but yeah, and I don't know how it's different in San Francisco, but we live in a pretty conservative state, and I think that's reflected in the parenting interactions too.
it is. Well, yeah. Actually, we're a big enough city. And I guess I should pay more attention. No, there's lots of people telling their kids not to go up the slides. There's some people telling the kids here not to go up the slides back in the day. One of the
Uh,
kids, like I look over and he's standing there looking at this guy, and the guy's got a cookie in his hand, and the guy's like, "Is this your kid?" And I'm like, "Wow, this is gonna be interesting." I'm like, "Yeah," He's like, he was doing something dangerous, and some of our slides are like this,
mhm.
and the hill to get up them are like this because we've got these hills just laying around, like we talked about on Lombard. Um, and he decided it was too dangerous for a 3-year-old to go up that hill on his own, so he had coaxed him back down with a cookie, and I'm just like, you, you did what? Well, I had this cookie, so I told him to come back down. I'm like, he's fine.
Yeah.
And off we went. So yeah, no, we get the same. Yeah, I guess everybody gets really odd stuff happening all the time.
Yeah,
But yeah,
which is
yeah,
why we're talking about the traits that we really love, because there are so many traits that we come across in other parents that we find really abrasive or off-putting, and
yeah,
kind of based trying to go the opposite direction of our last episode, which was let's kind of let's
yeah.
have a hot take, let's look at some negative views, like, so this one's more positive. So probably not as interesting as to some people. It's like, no, I want to see hot takes instead.
On the
So yeah, that
slide.
one's mine. Stoicism, unruffled, unflappable. Like, that's, I always love to see that in parents. The parents that can just um that don't react but still respond in some way. And they're not reactionary where something happens and they have to react to it. But they still have some kind of response, and it's normally a calmer one.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's nice. I guess to start mine, the parents. So like I said, I went more of the specific sets of parents idea. But the first one that came to mind for me, even though they did, because I think everybody's own parents does a lot of things. I know my parents' own parents did it because my parents sat me down and told me, they're like, our parents did this, and this that we're never going to do because we think those were jerky moves. And yeah, there's some stuff my parents did that way too. So I definitely don't emulate them carte blanche. But what mine did that I really appreciated, and that I was gonna not, I was like putting off having kids even, was they just took me everywhere. And I went to work, I went to conferences, they did not I got plenty of attention and stuff, but I was not the center. They had things they wanted to do, and yep, this person is short and young, but yeah, they're coming through.
Hmm.
And I really appreciate that, and I wish the world was more like that, where kids were tolerated everywhere.
Hmm.
And I've emulated that, and we've really had a big time with it. The kids used to go to, when I had to go to parts stores and things like that, the kids would go with me, and there's like free popcorn and peanuts at places like that, and they loved it. And the kids and I used to hang around at college campuses, and we got invited into an architecture career fair once, and wound up
Hmm.
back in the speakers room because they had snacks. And it just worked, and it never would have occurred to me. The reason I had it pointed out to me that my folks did that was, I was like, I don't want to have kids because then, I'll just be centered on kids, and what would I do? And they're like, did we seem like we were centered? And I'm like, no. And they're like, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the first one for me. Is I really like parents that are just like, yeah, it's a kid, and still I'm doing the things I've always done. So
Yeah, and they they recognize, what was I going to say about that? I really like that approach. It's one of the things that connected me to you, because it's different than the way that I practiced, the way that I saw parenting kind of when I first came into it. I was more of kind of an isolationist. Like, we change our lives and we do center our lives around our kids, and our lives become very different, which I think does rob the kids of some experiences that they could have, um, which I don't like. I mean, I don't think we did something wrong, but I think we could have done some things a little different, and it would have been better for us as a family. But we're learning, and so some of it comes down to, like, giving yourself permission as a parent to do things that you love, and recognizing that your kids don't have to love it along with you, um, but they can still go.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
if you're really into comic books, like, um, you take them and you teach them the rules of being around comic books, and then you just go together. Or you love going to the skate park, and they don't have to skate, they don't have to learn how to skate, they don't have to like being there. But in general, I think kids like going where their parents go.
uh-huh, uh-huh. We have the
So
opposite experience in the skate park. I don't know how to skate on anything.
yeah.
And so that's the thing where I go with them, and they're like, "You want me to teach you?" I'm like, "No, no,
No,
no, don't. Thanks."
I like my hips and knees the way they are, please.
But see, even so, I like find a little bench and I sit down on my laptop and I get some work done, and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
The next one that I really think about, I want to unpack this one with you, because it's used a lot in parenting advice right now. But I don't think everyone agrees on what it means, and that is authenticity.
Okay.
Um, I really like when I can see a parent that is being real with their kids and, allowing themselves to express emotions, even emotions like frustration and anger, without being like belligerent. Because
Yeah.
I think you can be authentic, but you can easily take that into a really controlling kind of personality where you're trying to use your emotions to control your child. Um, but then you can, but that doesn't mean that we should never, express those things. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense. What do you think about as far as I know for me a lot of times it's if I investigate where I am when I find myself really really frustrated, I'm like, okay, that felt insulting, that made me sad, that made me threaten this direction, and now the emotion that I would like to express is frustration. um and then I try to, if I'm having a great parenting day, I try to talk about what led up to that, all the feelings that led up to that emotion, as opposed to expressing the emotion. What do you think about? What are your thoughts on like expressing emotions versus talking about emotions versus or like that whole spectrum?
I agree with all that. And my only thought is that um, sometimes I reckon I want to have a conversation about it, and sometimes I recognize that I need to just um, sort of be grumpy and allow myself that and give myself some space. Like they don't
Ooh, yeah.
necessarily need to know and be bothered with why I'm grumpy. Um, Maybe I just need to go up in my bedroom and play some video games for a while and calm down.
Right on.
Uh,
Oh,
'Cause
yeah.
that's one of my ways of calming down. Is I get on my phone, I I zone out and I play one of my favorite games. Um, Although sometimes that stresses me out because I lose a bunch of games in a row and I'm like,
Oh no.
ah! No!
Oh no.
But if I'm by myself, then I kind of work out some of my own wiggly tendencies, and then I come back and I'm just ready to be with them. They don't necessarily need to be burdened with every, like I don't want to try to turn it into a teachable moment. And
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
when I'm angry, I have a tendency to do that. I have a tendency to say, these are my emotions, and my emotions are kind of your responsibility. You need to make sure that you help me manage them. That's the message that I can end up sending.
Okay.
Where
Yeah.
if I recognize that I think I just need some time by myself, then I'm looking after myself, and I'm not implying that they need to help keep me happy, because
Cool.
that can be a really negative thing. Does that help explain that a
Yeah.
little bit?
Yeah. No, that's cool. That's cool. Cool. Another trait that we have seen. So I had a buddy at work way back when, years before kids, and she was an Israeli fighter pilot instructor before she was an engineer.
Hmm.
So I don't know if this has any truth to it at all, but I always envisioned her like, Kelly McGillis was in Top Gun as like the pilot instructor, and apparently that was my buddy's job in Israel. And so I'd known her 2 or 3 years, and she had a kid, and we're like all 20s, 30s years old, know nothing about kids, and we're like, or I didn't. I say we, I, um, um, and it's like, oh wow, you had a kid, congratulations. And the first thing she does is she shows me this picture, and the kid, who is maybe 3, maybe 4 weeks old at that point, is laid up against the dog. And I was so ignorant at the time. I'm like, babies can be around, like that little, they can be around dogs because immune systems and this, that, and the other. And she's like, but all I asked was, babies can be around dogs, and she's like, yeah, they're in love with each other. They're with each other all the time. And I'm just like, oh, and so that was like this huge eye opener. And I'm like, well, what are you guys doing now? Are you like, what are you up to this weekend? She's like, oh, we're going camping. I'm like, what? And she's
Yeah.
like, we're gonna hike 8 miles in camp, and I'm like, what? And she's like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, the baby needs. She was breastfeeding, and she's like, yeah, the baby needs fluids and food, and but it's a baby and it's going to do the same thing camping that it was going to do if we didn't camp, and we can walk back out in 2 hours. And so if anything happens, we're back out in 2 hours,
Yeah.
and not a big deal. And again, I guess that kind of fits along the same lines. But yeah, just watching these parents, I was really happy to have met them because they were doing these things that I had no idea. I think my
Hmm.
base assumption kind of baked in. We can blame it. We should probably blame it on me, but I could try to blame it on society. Was that they're delicate and fragile and you can't do anything? And she's like, yeah, just we're out. Um, and so yeah, that's the other thing that I really appreciated was the understanding that animals, outdoors, camping, everything is just because my parents didn't do that kind of stuff. That everything was still cool and okay.
Yeah.
Um, and which is good. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I love hearing stories like that, thinking about camping together, and I'm sure there's times that it's more challenging than you would like it to be. Um, but at the same time, is it any worse than being at home? And like,
Yeah.
I mean, babies are hard no matter where you go. Like,
Uh huh.
uh, and so baby
Totally.
caring for a young infant is challenging, and um, it's I think sometimes the language that people use is like, you can do whatever you want with kids and it'll be fine. And it comes across as a little bit dismissive and sort of cavalier,
Okay.
where it's not like it'll be fine, but the likelihood that it's going to go horribly wrong is pretty low.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
Does that
yeah.
make sense? It's like, it's not fair to imply that you can do whatever, you can live your life exactly as you've always lived it and everything will work out. It's like, well, sometimes it
Oh,
doesn't work out. There can be
yeah.
things that go wrong and
Yeah.
things will go wrong. But when you compare it to the risks of living life as you've all as um, trying to live a safe life, it's there's a parity there. It's so on a long scale of time, it's um, insignificant, the differences.
Yeah, yeah, and kind of what I was hearing there, which I don't, I fall into this thing where I like to do what I like to do. But some folks may want a parent, and their thing may have been, I'm gonna focus on the kid, and this is exactly what I wanted to do, and
Yeah.
that's great too. If that's exactly
Hmm.
what yeah, get the baby room ready and make the crib and do all that
Yeah.
great stuff, and
Yeah, be a
also great.
homebody. Like there's nothing wrong with being a homebody and not wanting
Uh
to go
huh.
outside. I think
Yeah.
where it gets problematic is where those two sides kind of criticize each other, where one side says, no, you got to get your kids out doing the things that you want to do, and the homebody is saying, I don't want to camp. Like,
Yeah, totally.
I
Which
we live indoors for a reason.
totally, and yeah, no, and yeah, everybody needs to like we love that because we go to the camping site, no one's there.
Yeah.
It's like you will never like that. That's actually one really hard thing for me to do. I'm like, you should tell other people about this great camping site, and then I'm like, no, no, you
No.
shouldn't.
the
There's no
second
one here
the
right now.
the first rule of camping is you don't talk about camping.
Kind of, yeah.
The second rule is you don't talk about camping.
This is so great. You should tell everyone. But what if they came? Oh
Yeah.
shit. You know.
That's excellent. Okay, my third one, and then I have a story about an example parent after you go again.
Okay.
This one kind of surprised me actually. That I like it when parents are kind of like talkative around their kids, and not shy about just talking about life and just anything around their kids. Um, so that would be another trait that I really like. I don't like it when parents get real kind of hush or like, oh, we only discuss certain topics around children or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, no, I'm right there with you. It's a good one. It makes life well for us. It makes life easier that we do that.
Yeah.
It makes life really weird. Well, giggly for the kids and I sometimes when we run into that. Because we do this thing where we go everywhere together and we go to book talks and the author, lets out fuck or whatever, and then they're like, "Oh my god!" and the kids are like, "What the fuck is she talking?" And I'm like, "Don't say that there." I'm like, "They're good. They've heard this."
They've
But
heard
and
it. Let's keep moving on.
yeah, yeah. But even more than just swear words. Yeah, like being able to talk about topics in the open is really nice, I think.
Yeah. One of the things that I think is coming up really soon for us is our 6-year-old is very interested in anatomy and babies and um, we just had a cousin that had gave birth to a baby, so it's like she's just enamored. She carries around a baby doll and she wants to
Ah,
play baby like on the couch. And so something that is coming very soon is like, where do babies come from?
yeah,
She knows like how they grow. She knows that once they're born they feed at their mom's breast, or sometimes they bottle feed. She
yeah,
knows all that stuff, but she has yet to ask that question, where do babies come from? And Kristen's a little bit nervous about it. I'm looking forward to it, but I think the nervousness is a cultural nervousness of like, how do I dumb this down and make it appropriate for my kid?
okay,
Where I think you can just say, oh, it's just like animals, like, a mom and
yeah,
two adults have sex,
yep,
and sometimes they get pregnant and the baby starts growing in the mom's belly.
yeah,
And I don't think you need any other explanation beyond that. And then they can always ask, well, what is sex? And
right,
then you can kind of keep going down that road. But I think culturally, we try to make it the conversation like follow a certain path. And it's like, just take the path of least resistance, like take the path that
yeah,
makes sense in that moment, and then deal with the consequences. Like maybe you say a little bit too much, but they'll ask about it. Or maybe like what happens a lot of times with our kids is you give an answer that doesn't make sense at all, and they're like, okay. And you're
yeah,
like, okay, I guess that's good enough.
exactly. And they like around here, they'll ask more later when they, after they think it
Yeah.
through or something else comes up, and yeah,
They don't have to know what it means, and sometimes they're okay with not knowing. It was like, all right, well, you answered the question, and that's all I needed.
that's the level I wanted to go. Yeah, yeah. No, totally, totally. I think it's yeah. I think it's so much easier before there's hormones involved and like in our experience, it was never they're just like, oh yeah, right. That thing you
Hmm.
said, that's okay. That's what sex is. That's how that works. All right, fine.
Yeah.
Could not have cared less. And
And I think a lot of it comes from like, it's like, well, when I mention cookie, they want a cookie. So if I mention sex, they'll want sex.
oh,
Like, I think there's somewhere in our heads that if I can avoid talking about sex, then they'll avoid wanting it. But it's like, no,
not when the time. Well,
that's not how our body works. Like,
I was gonna say, in my opinion, when the time comes, no, that won't have helped at all. But
no, no. In fact, it's probably going to make it even more enticing, the fact that it was like hush.
yeah, forbidden fruit kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good metaphor for it. All right, what's your next example?
My next example is a mom, and again with work, a mom that I ran into while I worked, and I probably met her when her kid was 10, and it wasn't. I guess it wasn't so much. It was a little bit how she parented, and again with this theme of she would have me and three other engineers over to the house, and the kids hanging out too, and the kid hung out with us, and the kid was just always, oh, people. and would hang out. And so I knew this kid. I knew, I met this kid like probably 6 times between the times he was 10 and 17, and then I worked for a different company. But yeah, the mom was again just always really like yeah, this is a kid. Of course, the kid interacts with everything. And then the it was really interesting because I wonder if the mom even back then was like I think I had maybe the first kid here was born just before her kid got out of high school, and so we met for coffee at a conference actually here in San Francisco. We didn't neither I didn't live here yet, but we met for a conference because we meet once a year for coffee. And she's like, "Hey, I wanted to talk to you about something." And her kid had a buddy who just like woke up one morning in junior year. And it's funny because I was so entrenched in public schooling back then. I was like, "Oh, that's really weird." And I'm like, "Duh," but just woke up one morning in junior year and said, "I'm not going." And the parents are
Mm.
like, "What?" And his buddy's like, I'm not going to school. And they're like, "Today?" And he's like, "Ever again." and, uh, and she's like, "What would you do?" And I wonder if at that point she was trying to, because I didn't really know about unschooling yet, and I'm like, "Gosh, gee whiz, I don't know." Now
Mm.
my answer right out would just be like, "Well, then don't go. It'll be fine." Um, but the other thing that she did was so she and the kid went and hiked Kilimanjaro. I think the kid's either junior or summer
Mm.
vacation, vacation or senior year summer vacation, and the kid apparently on the hike spent most of the time talking with the guides and the Sherpas. And they got back
Mm.
and he told her, he goes, "I think I'm going to go in a year and be a hiking guide and a Sherpa." And and what I love about her, she's like, "Okay." She
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, you're going to college, etc." She's like, "All right, that's fine."
Yeah.
And sure as hell he did. And apparently had a great time and came back and he's like, "I'm going to be a commercial fisherman in Alaska."
Mm.
Because and I had a professor that did this. Apparently, you make tons of money if you can stay, upright and alive.
Yeah.
And again, she's just like, "Okay." And off he went. And then he became a fishing guide. And then he came back, to the States and became a construction worker. And now I think he's off in Greece studying, went to like, I don't know how old he is now. I have no idea. But yeah, finally decided that what he wanted to study was Hellenic languages and went off to Greece and got into a college and went to college.
Yeah.
And her reaction the whole time was just, all right,
Sure.
this sounds great. You're
Yeah.
having fun, lovely. See ya. And so yeah, I really liked getting to watch her do that before the kids got here. Was really nice. Like, oh wow, I don't need to be involved in every maybe any aspect of my kids' decision making. And so yeah, that's
That connects with something I've been reading lately. Not a parenting book. I actually have it right here. It's called Sellout,
oh
and it's
cool.
the major label feeding frenzy that swept punk, emo, and hardcore 1994 to 2007. One of the stories is about Blink 182,
Okay,
and um, so Mark Hoppus, the bass player, was playing in the band, and he was in college, and it got to the point that they were playing. They played all weekend, and they were getting requests to book shows throughout the week, and he was
wow,
already scheduling his classes to be Tuesdays through Thursdays because he needed the whole weekend to play with the band. And he talked to his mom and said, "Look, I can either double down on college and I can finish my degree, or I can double down on the band and I can go that and I can keep working on that." This was before their first major label release, I believe so. And she said, "You know what? College will always be there. You don't get very many chances to be in a band. I think you should do that."
cool.
And I thought that was so cool. Just such a great example of having a relationship with your child where you can just talk about things and you can make decisions together. And
Yeah,
and that doesn't mean that he was, because he found success in a band that was the better route, or that he is happier how he is now compared to what he might have done in college. The point is that they made the decision together, and like she like respected where he was coming from. um, i just
Yeah.
I just feel like it's so rare. I want to see it in more parents, that I want to see it in myself, that when my kids do something that's kind of weird and unconventional, that I'm like, give it a try, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
I think I have, to kind of finish out my list, I have a story about a parent that has continued to inspire me. And that is an older friend of mine. His kids are the same age as me. Um, and maybe actually a few years older. And he told the story about when they were younger, once a week, he would take each of them individually on a walk and just give them a chance to talk about anything that they wanted to talk about. Over the course of several years, they would, as they approach different struggles in their life, they would talk about things, um, that were more deep and very personal. And his promise to his two boys were that the like everything that we talk about on these talks is confidential. I'm not even going to tell your mother about it. And um, and he said that they checked him out on that a little bit. Like they would ask their mom about something that they knew they talked to their dad about, and their mom didn't know
Oh,
anything
wow.
about it.
Okay.
And
Right on.
he said he credits that with allowing him to build trust and rapport with his boys that he felt like he couldn't have developed without doing that.
Yeah.
Um, that's not to say that that's the only way to build that trust and rapport, but it's always been a very cool example of the amount of dignity that he gave to his boys by saying, like, even your mother, who is the most, who is a wise person and probably deserves to know this stuff, like, I'm not even going to volunteer that information without your permission. I feel like that extends a lot of dignity to his boys that a lot of kids don't get.
Yeah. No, that's cool. And it seems really important to me too, because I don't guess in any given person's life, I don't guess the shit necessarily has to ever hit the fan. But like those kids, it sounds like if push ever came to shove, they've got at least one person they can trust. He's
Yeah.
built that. They have a place they can fall to, and
Yeah.
that's a really nice thing to have. As a parent, I would think that would be a really nice position to be in too. You don't know for sure, but to at least have at least to put a plan in place
Yeah.
where you're trying to make sure that your kids have a place to fall towards if anything ever gets really bad because you treated them that way. That's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I like to talk about it as, I like to see myself as an airport for my kids, and like I'm a safe place to land. And they can go to other airports, and they can travel around the world, both metaphorically and physically. And
Cool.
but they always can come back to me. And I never want them to be coming back to me and feel like um, the runway's closed. You know what I mean?
Right on.
Like,
Yep. Yep.
like
That's
the
a cool
runway is
metaphor.
always the runway is always clear. Um, for dad's runway is always clear. So that's this father kind of embodies that philosophy.
Cool. That is, yeah, no, that's a nice one. Cool, cool.
That'll be in my book too. That's, I don't talk about it a whole lot, but that's definitely, I use a lot of metaphors in the book, and that's one of them that I use.
Metaphors
But
are nice.
this was a really cool topic, very positive and kind of fun to talk about the things that we really look up to in other parents.
Yeah.
Do you have any
Yeah.
closing thoughts that you want to share about it?
No, I think I'm good. I'm glad we did one like this because this does feel so much better saying, "Wow, I saw these things are great."
Yeah.
So yeah,
I wish we kind of had like, I bet we could find it like video evidence of stuff like where we could actually show people like what we're talking about. Because it's one thing to hear about somebody talking about it, and I think that's helpful, but to actually see it in action, to see parents responding in these ways is just, it's so helpful to be able to like, it like gives you another menu option of like, oh, I didn't realize that interacting with my child in this way was a possibility. I didn't even know that was on the menu.
yeah, uh-huh,
Um,
uh-huh, uh-huh.
so I'd like to find more ways that we can kind of share like video clips that kind of explain the kinds of things that we're talking about. And I want to be careful. Like, I don't want to exploit people. I don't want to
Right.
exploit my own kids and my own family.
Yeah,
I don't want to borrow other families' footage without their permission and like, look what these kids are doing. I
yeah,
want to be really careful that like privacy is really important to me. Um, and I want to respect that, but I also want to share some of that stuff. So it's a hard spot to be in. But
yeah, yeah.
anyway, thanks everybody for watching and following along, and we'll see you in our next episode, hopefully.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.